Korra is a full-time pro-bender, a princess, and the Avatar. This makes her a borderline Mary Sue. The only thing that separates her from being a full Mary Sue is that she has to learn her powers, and she is tortured in Book 3, but for actual character growth, not just so you'll feel sorry for her. What really didn't help is the scene with Korra using the Avatar state to cheat in a children's game. This made her irredeemable in many people's eyes. In Book 1 and 2, Korra isn't shown trying to connect with her past lives enough or use her other skills. In Book 2, Korra takes herself way too seriously and continues to be a jerk to Mako when he's just trying to help her. Korra does apologize later, but there's no reason given why she's so hostile in Book 2. I don't think it's Korra's personality that is the issue here, it's the way that she has been set up with all this. Here's how I think you can make Korra more likable. First, change Korra's roles and relationships. That goes for both romantic and platonic. Make Korra only be a stand-in for the waterbending role on the pro-bending team. This will not only reduce the big roles she has, but also reduce the amount of pro-bending taking place during the plot, as many people have argued it took up way too much time. Next, make Korra a more distant relative to Unalaq, or don't make them blood related at all. This gets rid of her princess role. Now here is what I believe that will be the biggest improvement to this series if you revise it. In Book 3, it was explained Korra was kidnapped as a baby by the Red Lotus, that being why her parents kept her stuck at the South Pole. Why did Korra have to be a baby when the Red Lotus tried to kidnap her? This opens up several questions. How did the Red Lotus know that Korra was the Avatar, or even before the White Lotus could figure it out? Change Korra's age when she was kidnapped by the Red Lotus, making her about, say, 4 or 5 years old, so this way she has actual memories of it. Now, not only could you open this series with Korra being rescued by her parents and Sokka, this would explain her behavior in the first 2 seasons. On top of that, it would create more tension and more opportunities for character development, and overall give better framing to the series. Now, if you were to make this change, this part is optional, but I think it would just be a natural lead-in. Along with Korra being the only Avatar that doesn't travel the world to be trained, she could have agreed with her parents to keep that she's the Avatar a secret, like superheroes commonly do.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Let me explain. Korra doesn't have to keep her identity a secret for the whole series, just Book 1. And Korra hiding her identity would actually go along with the other alter egos in the original series. Tenzin and Korra's parents would warn her that telling the world who she is would put her in danger again. But Korra, being a growing social animal known as a human, would begin to protest this. The obstacle for Korra telling the world she is the Avatar would be her fear of losing her bending, as Amon knowing who she is would put her at higher risk. This superhero dynamic would also explain why she's so obsessed with being the Avatar. The plotline setup of a growing woman overcoming her childhood trauma is far more compelling than the setup of a seemingly spoiled brat that needs to get her act together.
Hi, it's Koi Monster's friend Tek-no. My voice box broke, and I have to use Windows 98. Koi Monster got too frustrated when redoing Asami's part, so I took over for her. Koi Monster never hated Asami, but she is the most inconsistent character out of the main cast, and she had a very poor introduction. Asami is supposed to be a great driver, but when Mako and the audience meet her, it was her randomly crashing into him on her moped. Then Asami being overly nice to Mako afterward made some viewers suspicious of her. We learn more about Asami in the episode The Aftermath, when Korra and Asami have fun test driving and saying she can look after herself, but she didn't protest being treated as weak in that same episode, when she is faced with the possibility her father is working with the Equalists. This passive behavior only continues in Book 2. While the base of Asami's design isn't bad, her darker color scheme and heavy makeup makes her look like Lust from Full Metal Alchemist. Both Asami's design and role starting out as a romantic rival to Korra gave many audience members the impression she is a villain. In Book 2 it is nice to see Mako and Asami working together. Too bad it ends up going nowhere, and we couldn't see them work together when they were an actual couple. Koi Monster was going to give Asami credit for not treating Bolin like an idiot when he was in an abusive relationship in Book 2, but in the next scene she is shown to be okay with bribery.
You what?
This isn't just related to Asami, but Koi Monster's biggest problem with Book 1 has been that all of Korra's friends just so happen to agree with her on the political climate in her world. There needs to be more differences in viewpoints in the new Team Avatar. The biggest fix to Asami is changing her introduction. Koi Monster suggests Korra and Asami should start out as pen pals instead. Asami is the daughter of Hiroshi Sato, who is well known Korra could have contacted Asami as her father works in an industry she likes, and they would then write back and forth for years. This would give Korra even more motivation to go to Republic City to see a friend she never actually met. Have Korra meet Asami first thing when she gets to Republic City and tell Asami she is the Avatar. This would be a big deal for both of them. Have Asami support the Equalists at the beginning of book 1, but has good intentions. Asami could have looked for help from the Equalists, given her own mother was killed by a firebender. Asami could have argued Amon was only taking away the bending from criminals, until she saw that Amon wants to take everyone's bending. Asami also dated Mako, who is a firebender in spite of one killing her mother. Why is she this open-minded, yet her father isn't? Mako wanting to be a cop could make Asami uncomfortable, given where she lives, and being a non-bender she could have a bad history with them. The lack of a shared common goal and trust would then cause Asami to break up with Mako, instead of the love triangle. Bolin could have argued that the bribery is okay in this situation, because he's doing it to save Korra's father. Asami could then give Bolin a hard time for this, telling him you just don't abandon your principles, because something inconvenient comes up. If you're going to make Asami passive, make it part of her growth. Make it that she knows what she wants, but needs to assert herself more. Asami could be very upset at the trial. This could remind her of having to testify against her own father for trying to murder her. Asami would then get so upset she had to leave. This would show her as someone who can hold her own weight, but still has a sensitive side.
Thanks Tek-no for your help. Now it's time for me to rip Bolin a new one. Bolin was meant to be comic relief, but many of his scenes hide several disturbing implications about his personality and intentions, like I brought up in the worst episode. In season 2, the actress Ginger had turned Bolin's advances down several times, which she only continued to double down on.
Britt needs you to find the differences between this picture and this picture. They're the same picture.
When Bolin isn't being creepy, he's useless, and he only develops critical thinking skills once it's convenient for the plot. And he gets rewarded for all his god-awful behavior.
That's disturbing.
Why is Mako not way more pissed at Bolin for his awful treatment? Bolin has been a complete ass to him, telling him to his face the only reason he believes Varric is behind the city attacks is because he's insane. To top this all off, Bolin caused the Civil War to become a subplot in Book 2 with his taking over. Say what you will about all the other characters, but even in their worst appearances, they didn't do this. Now, to fix this mess of a character, if you're gonna make Bolin a toxic jackass, make it part of his character growth. Make Mako be more of the star in Book 1, and Bolin gets looked over by the pro-bending fans. Bolin has been shown to be the envious type before, in a scene where he thinks Tarlok is a boy Korra's age pursuing her, so this makes him consistent. Leave Bolin's base personality alone, but when he overcompliments people, they get uncomfortable. When Bolin starts to do better in the movers, show fame goes to his head and have him punished for his awful behavior. Make it clear that Bolin feels he's been living in Mako's shadow, and make Bolin actually helpful in season 2. In Southern Lights, where he did nothing, have Bolin use a walkie-talkie he found in the coat that Varric lent him, so he can call for backup when they get stranded. Take all the scenes from the movers and make them all one episode, and move it into the middle of the season. Bolin starts to get too comfortable with his new lifestyle and starts spending too much money on luxuries. Bolin's growing ego blinds him and he starts treating everyone like a servant, with Eska only enabling this. This time when Mako is in prison and Bolin visits him, make Mako visibly angry at his brother. Have Bolin find out too late that Mako was right when Varric attacks. Bolin returns to Mako telling him what happened, only for Mako to punch him in the face, and rightfully scold him, telling him it only got this bad in the first place because he wouldn't listen. When walking out of prison, Mako is met with claps, but Bolin is met with a lawyer telling him Ginger is filing a lawsuit against him for harassment and assault.
You're a creep! Go away!
Bolin returns to his apartment to see the bank took all his belongings for his irresponsible spendings. And who is there waiting for him? Eska, his abusive girlfriend. Bolin can work to redeem himself in the season final after breaking up with Eska. While I do like how Mako is set up as a mature and stern father figure type character, his design is the weakest and doesn't reflect his personality. Mako had also seen the least amount of development and growth out of the whole main cast. I've shown my beef with Mako's inconsistencies in Spirit of the Competition, but he has more in Book 2. The writers keep giving mixed messages if Mako and Asami are back together, and worst of all, Mako tries to burn his brother alive for being rude to him. And how other characters treat Mako doesn't help either. Lin treats Mako like a complete idiot just so someone doesn't hold his hand in Varric's pointless arc, and why does Mako trust the Triads and Peacekeepers? Just like with Asami, change how Mako is introduced. Mako becomes a cop in Book 2. Why not show him training more in Book 1 for this? He can train as a cop while working as a probender on the side. Given Korra hides her identity in this timeline, Korra can be out fighting crime and bump into Mako. Korra recognizes Mako, who agrees to an autograph at the arena after the game. When Korra meets Mako again at probending outside of her disguise, his anger now has a different context. He believes the Avatar stood him up, as Tenzin still kept her home overnight. While I had my beef with Mako being indecisive in his romantic relationships, if you're going to do this, make this aspect of his personality consistent. Mako would have gained his stern fatherly personality from having to look after his brother when living out on the streets, but resulting in him sacrificing his own wants and needs. Mako can have the opposite problem Asami does. While Asami is a woman who knows what she wants but has trouble asserting herself, Mako is a man who knows how to assert himself but doesn't know what he wants. And this could be another factor into why Asami breaks up with him. Along with Mako training to be a police officer, Asami gets fed up with Mako for being unable to make his own decisions. As a last effort to keep the relationship with her, he says he'll drop the training entirely, but this only frustrates Asami more. What did I just say, Mako? I'm not your mother, you need to make your own decisions. Next, give Mako more inner conflict. Given Mako's parents were murdered by a firebender and right in front of him, does he feel responsible for their death just because he shares a trait with their murderer? Making him a self-loathing firebender would show more of the social issues and would be a good parallel to Amon. Does Mako even consider that his powers aren't worth keeping because so many people distrust him, and even considers handing himself over to Amon? Mako did say himself in the episode The Revelation, "I knew a lot of people hated benders, but I've never seen so many in one place." You want to expand on how you know this, Mako? Have you experienced this firsthand? In Book 2, instead of Lin being hostile to Mako, Lin respects Mako for helping him take down Amon. But she's busy on her end and tells him she can't bail him out if he makes a mistake. This is a rather risky move, but if you keep it, it could have a big payoff. Given Mako is now a character set up as a guy who is unsure of himself, I'm actually going to advise you keep the love triangle.
Love triangles really only work if the outcome is not obvious and if all the characters involved are actually interesting, like if they actually have chemistry between each other. The only example of a love triangle done well that I can think of is from an anime called Fruits Basket, where you've got the main character, Toru, who kind of crushes on two guys from her class named Kyo and Yuki. The thing that works about the love triangle is both the guys are interesting in their own right, and there's real chemistry between the differing couples. And I'll decide I want to go with one pairing, and then I'll see like another episode, and then the other pairing seems more appealing. It's really conflicting.
Mako being a celebrity, he would have more dating options. Korra having the superhero dynamic would actually help with her chemistry. Korra tells Mako first thing out of her disguise she is the Avatar. This means she trusts him, and this means a lot more to Mako than Korra first realized. Given Mako grew up on the streets and had to work with gangs to get by, this would be the first time anyone outside of his family trusts him. It doesn't matter how many shared interests or goals you have, if you don't trust your friend or partner, you have nothing. For Korra, Mako is the first person who doesn't scold her for having a different view on what risks are worth it or not. That's a lot more compelling than playing a sport with someone and instantly having feelings for them. What made the main cast in Avatar compelling was not just that they came from different places or had different skills, but they all had different viewpoints. Some that changed and some that stayed the same. Shaffarala Productions, who I'm referencing again, said the reason why Infinity War's conflict worked so well because all the cast members couldn't agree on what sacrifices were worth it or not. That's what my suggestion for the main cast ultimately leads up to. Asami would argue that fighting the Equalists is a bad idea and that they should work together, but the rest of the cast doesn't trust them at all. Korra would constantly be told to hide who she is to protect herself, only for this speech to lose all meaning from hearing it so much. This is the drama I wanted to see in The Legend of Korra, not the petty high school squabbles that you gave us.
It's my proposal, say whatever you like, but if you get it wrong, be prepared for a sword fight. Bring back the motherfucking duel, cause I got fools that I'm like the school in the battle of blades. Don't besmirch my name, I'll get slapped, get stabbed, and bleed that, and that's that. Think twice for Benny and Glenn, cause you might just die at the dawn of